So there's been some drama going on with Sony recently in the gaming world, in the gaming landscape. The first tidbit of news came a few days ago, I believe it was, that Sony was being sued 5 billion for ripping off their consumer base because of prices on the PlayStation Store. And I've been saying this for a long time. In fact, this is a big reason why I jumped the PC in the first place, is because of the ridiculous prices on the PlayStation Store. Now, going over some of the information here, consumer rights advocate Alex Neil, who is leading the action against Sony, quote unquote, he said that the actions of Sony is costing millions of people who can't afford it, particularly when they're in the middle of a cost of living crisis and the consumer purse is being squeezed like never before. Now, it also mentions here in the article that all digital storefronts take a 30% cut on products sold. So all of these storefronts, they take a cut, but I think they also make the majority of the money when a product is purchased on that storefront. Take Steam, for example. Steam makes most of the majority of the cut when you purchase a game on that platform. This is why companies like Ubisoft pulled out of Steam. Like you can't find any recent Ubisoft games like Far Cry 6, for example, is not on Steam because they stopped selling their games on Steam because Steam makes most of the cut. You know, that's another part of this whole argument here. And it could likely be the reason why Sony has been pricing games on the PlayStation Store the way they have for a long time, for years. Another part of this is the actual hardware itself. So the PlayStation consoles, particularly the PlayStation 5, Sony, they're selling those consoles at a loss, basically. Most of the money that they make off of the PlayStation 5 is through the software, sales of software, and digital purchases. Now, most people on consoles buy games digitally. Video games are bought digitally at a much higher rate than they are physically, with their physical counterparts. And they got the numbers to prove that. Now, if you look here, this is Statista.com. And this is digital versus physical game sales since the year 2009. So digital is in the dark blue right here, and physical is in the light blue. And if you go year by year, by the time we get to 2013, more video games are being bought digitally, being sold digitally than they are physically. And that number keeps expanding year after year after year. I don't know what the number is now, since we're in 2022, but just a few years ago, in 2018, only 17% of physical games were bought versus an astounding 83% digitally. Again, this goes back to that video I made a few months ago, saying that digital was actually better than physical, primarily because it's more convenient. The downside of buying digital, though, especially on console, is the actual pricing. Now, with PC gaming, well, all of these digital storefronts, PlayStation Store, the Xbox Live Marketplace, Nintendo, they have their own digital store. So all of these digital storefronts, they have sales, right? They have sales here and there. It's more frequent on PC, and the actual prices themselves are much more consumer friendly on PC by comparison. So for example, with the PlayStation Store, certain games, certain recent games like Elden Ring, for example, Sony is still selling this game at full price several months after it came out initially. What Sony is trying to do, because their digital sales make up the majority of their profit, they're trying to capitalize as much as possible. And again, we do have games that go on sale on the PlayStation Store, but it's not really frequent. It's not as frequent as it should be. So going back to this story right here, I'm not really sure what the end game is. It says here that if the lawsuit is successful, it's believed that consumers could be eligible for compensation. So I guess what they're trying to do, they're trying to get money back into the hands of consumers who've bought games off of Sony's digital storefront. It seems like a temporary solution. What the end goal should be a permanent pricing change to the PlayStation Store. Now, do I think that anything is really going to come of this? Do I think that Sony is actually going to lose in this lawsuit? Not really. I think that there's a high chance that this lawsuit is not going to go through, because the argument can be brought up that all of these digital storefronts really price games in a very similar fashion to what Sony does with the PlayStation Store. Sony is just the lead market when it comes to the console scene. They're the lead in the market when it comes to the sales of consoles, the sales of games digitally, that sort of thing. As some people are saying, they're the biggest target. And that's because, again, they're the market leader. So that's likely the reason why this lawsuit isn't also targeting Microsoft and Nintendo, or even some of these PC gaming digital storefronts like Steam. But that's not the only controversial story that's come out against Sony and the whole PlayStation brand recently. There's also the issue of Sony recently, this just happened, raising the price of the PlayStation 5 console, and their reason for doing this is due to inflation, which is absolutely ridiculous and completely absurd and banal. And it's also worthy to note that they only raised the price of the PlayStation 5 outside the United States. So if you live outside the United States and you don't have a PS5, the price for the console just soared. And this also includes in Japan, where Sony, the company itself, is headquartered. Now, the price raise is effective immediately. So the price has already been raised, with the exception of Japan. The price hike in Japan will start on September the 15th, which isn't too far from now. It's a good 2 weeks away. For whatever random reason, Sony is not raising the price of the PlayStation 5 in the United States. I'm not sure why that is. It could be that most of the units that they sell is in the United States, and they don't want to risk raising the price of the PS5 in the US. That could be it. It could be something different. I'm not sure. But I think overall, in general, to blame inflation for the rise of, the price of this console is absolutely ridiculous. And the prices are as follows, listed here. So the console went from costing $500, and this is not including the tax. None of these prices include the tax. This is just the base price. So the console for the disc version went from being $500 to $549, and for the digital version from $400 to $449. It was already ridiculously expensive, absurdly expensive, to buy a PlayStation 5 in Australia, but now it's gotten even worse. So it's a $50 Australian dollar increase, similar to Europe, but now it costs $799 in Australia for the disc version, and $649 for the digital version. In Mexico, we have the pesos, so that's a 1,000 Mexican peso increase to 14,999 pesos, and that's for the disc version. For the digital version, it's been increased to 12,499 Mexican pesos. In Canada, which is the last major region, last major country right there, we have 20 Canadian dollar increase to $649.99 for the disc version, and $519.99 for the Canadian dollar for the digital model. Now, I can tell you right now, if you take a look at my review of the PlayStation 5 on the channel, in which I cover most of the important information with the system itself, including the games that are currently available for it, specifically the exclusive games that are only available on PlayStation 5, the system is not worth the base price here in the US, which is $500 for the disc version and $400 for the digital version, let alone any of these prices here in any of these countries. If you live in Australia, they basically butt fuck you sideways. Same with Canada. It's ridiculous. $650. The PlayStation 5 is not even worth $500, let alone $650, let alone, you may as well say, $800. And again, these prices do not include the tax. The tax alone is an extra $50. And on top of issues with inflation in the price increase that Sony has made official in all of these different countries, along with the issue of taxation, of the console itself, there's also another issue in the fact that the PlayStation 5 is still not readily available to any major retailers. In fact, the only reason that I got mine is because I got a message that GameStop was selling the units, and I went and bought myself a unit because I knew they were going to have them in stock, because I got a notification on my phone saying that they were going to have them in stock. So that's the only reason why I bought mine, and that's how I was able to get my hands on one. But the PlayStation 5 is notoriously still not available in any form in retail stores to any major capacity, going on 2 years after its initial release. And that likely means that all of these different retailers are going to force you to buy them in a bundle, which means that you're going to be forced to buy other things along with it, which is likely at least 2 different games, a peripheral of some sort, which is likely going to be a headset, along with an extra controller that you may or may not want. And all of that is going to raise the price even more. For Australia, that's definitely going to go over $1,000. For Canada, it's probably going to go over $1,000 as well. The PlayStation 5 is not worth all that. It really isn't. The response to this has been so negative that Xbox and Nintendo have come out and responded to Sony's ridiculous decision to raise the price of this gaming console. And basically the response was very quick and easy. Neither Microsoft nor Nintendo are raising the price of their consoles. It's not going to happen. I don't know exactly what's going on over there at Sony, but this is just another example as to why PC is becoming the most attractive platform when it comes to video games. It's the most accessible option. If you can get past that initial price to invest in a stable, dedicated gaming PC, be it a desktop or a laptop, there is really no reason to go back to console gaming, unless you just have to play some of these exclusives on PlayStation, for example, right when they come out. And given that Sony is now releasing their exclusives on PC, they're just not doing it day and day release, at least not yet. There's very, very little reason to invest in the PlayStation at this point. So if you still find yourself in a position where you don't have a PS5, but you want a PS5, you're really not missing much. You're really not missing much at all. I wouldn't even be concerned over this whatsoever.